If you ever wanted to know what a too big to fail attitude looks like in cardboard form, flip through an album of 1989 Topps baseball cards someday. By the time the old gum company's 38th full set hit store shelves that spring, collectors were bracing for big changes, expecting big improvements. Upper Deck had released their first promo cards of DeWayne Buice and Wally Joyner in the summer of '88, and hobbyists were drooling at the thought of an entire set with such clean design and crystal clear photos and holograms. The inaugural base Upper Deck issue delivered on that promise, though some of the collectors bristled at the inflated per pack price of $1. Score was back for its second season, and though much of its thunder as a new kid was stolen by Upper Deck and the Kid, produced a solid set. You could always count on Donruss doing something funky with their borders, and 1989 was no exception, with a design that told you right away who made the card. And of course, Fleer and Billy Ripken gave the hobby a verbal middle finger that resonated for years, and made packs of the gray-bordered issue one of the most chased-after wax pack offerings of the 1980s. But Topps, they didn't need innovation or great photos or fancy designs. They were Topps for gosh sakes. Purveyors of huge sets, thick brown cardstock, airbrushed photos, and tradition. So they crammed all those hallmarks into the last set of the decade, wrapped them in wax, and stood steadfast, while the hobby accelerated around them. Simple stop. To be fair, there is nothing really wrong with the 1989 Topps design, and as with Donruss cards, the issue is immediately identifiable as a Topps product. Each card front is dominated by a large player photo, surrounded by a thin team-colored piping, with a rounded upper left-hand corner. At the bottom of the card, large and whimsical two-tone font announces the team name, the last letter of which opens into a banner that fans back to the left underneath the club identifier. The player's name is printed in block capital letters across the bottom of a slender pendant, and the team/player combo is right justified and sits over the bottom portion of the player picture. In either the upper or the lower left-hand corner is the Topps logo, unobtrusive in its rendering but conspicuous in its placement. As with most Topps issues, the entire front is set off by a thick white border on all four sides that helps to give each card a clean look, but does little to advance the company's status as an innovator. And while the photos are generally crisp by Topps standards, they seem to have made a conscious decision to eschew on-field action. An abundance of players are pictured in head and shoulder poses, and a few, like Andre Dawson, number 10, treat us to what might be considered glamour shots, leaning forward with a faux casual posture, beaming for the camera. The posed photos fit well with the classic design, especially in retrospect, but they further lent to the perception at the time that Topps was stuck in the mud, while their competitors were at least trying new ideas. Cardbacks, while quintessentially Topps, do break out of the printer's mold to some extent. Each horizontal reverse starts off with a card number and a baseball in the upper left-hand corner, right next to a simple text box bar that includes a player's name and position. In the right-hand corner is another baseball. This one is devoted to the Topps logo. Beneath the header is a block of vital and biographical information, and then the heart of the real estate is devoted to a complete year-by-year and career stats as usual. Where space allows, there's a brief note under the statistics bar, and below that is where Topps got all crazy creative. The bottom of each card, again where space allows, with apologies to long-tooth marvels like Nolan Ryan 530, showcases a 1988 monthly scorecard. Tallied there are two key stats from the previous season, broken down month by month from April through September. The stats vary by player, so that Jose Canseco, number 500, tracks home runs and RBIs, while Tony Gwynn is more interested, at least according to 570, in hits and RBI. Overall, it's a solid card design that was exactly what we might have expected from Topps had we been expecting more from every card company just a year out from the start of the new decade. Turn up the heat, there's a draft in here. As winter turned to spring in 1989, the hobby was still bonkers over rookie cards, and we were getting hungry. We had eaten like kings from the rookie card cornucopia that the wax pack gods bestowed upon us in 1987, and we expected we'd always have a cache of first-year riches waiting for us in our packs when each new season dawned. The 1988 sets quickly disabused us of that notion, and we spent the year sorting through our new stacks over and over, searching for a gem that we had overlooked. By October, we were left to conclude that it had been a one-year aberration and that the rookies would return in full force in 1989. Upper Deck certainly did their part by tabbing King Griffey Jr. as the #1 card in their first ever set, and Jr. immediately set off on a trajectory that landed him in Cooperstown and his cards in the Hobby Hall of Fame. Fleer and Donruss also managed to get Griffey under wraps for their 1989 base set, but Topps somehow whiffed. Apparently they missed the hype that the youngster was causing throughout baseball. Topps did tip their caps to the rookie card segment of the hobby in a very significant way, though, and in doing so, they foreshadowed a trend that would become standard practice within a few years. Sprinkled through the set were pre-rookie cards of the top 10 picks from the 1988 amateur draft. It was the first time that the company had undertaken such an endeavor. A similar subset in 1985 Topps showcased the first pick from each of the several drafts rather than digging deep into the most recent class. The idea seemed a bit gimmicky at first, but plenty of us were happy to have cards of Bill Bean 84, Willie Ansley 607, and Ty Griffin 713 years before they turned into the superstars they were destined to be. And none of the 10 subsequently put together a Hall of Fame career doesn't diminish Topps' efforts on that front or the precedent it set. In particular, in the mid-1990s, the resurrected Bowman line was teeming with prospects who were years out from their major league debuts, and plenty who never did much of anything at all. Of course, draft picks weren't the only rookies in the 1989 Topps. They anointed 5 players as future stars, and their batting averages were pretty solid with this group. Steve Sarcey, 167, Greg Jeffries, 233, Gary Sheffield, 343, Sandy Alomar, 648, and Mike Harkey, 742, produced more big moments and could-be Coopertowns-bound discussions than any 5 men might have been expected to warrant. There was also a group of guys who we already thought were pretty good based on their 1988 performances, and whom Topps honored with All-Star rookies, complete with trophies on their 1989 pasteboards. Among those 10 were Cecil Espy, 221, Ron Gant, 296, Mark Grace, 465, and Chris Sabo, 490. As always, Topps also peppered their set with plenty of other rookies who garnered no special designation but turned out to be pretty decent players anyway. You know, mostly inconsequential guys like Ramon Martinez, 225, Rob Dibble, 264, John Schmaltz, 382, Randy Johnson, 647, and Brady Anderson, 757. So Topps gave us plenty to sink our teeth into when it came to 1989 rookies. Is it their fault that the one they missed out on lit up the baseball world for 2 decades? Well, yeah, I guess it is. Topps, still special after all these years. Topps resisted change hard for decades. If you were a fan of the special subsets that had become a staple by the late 1980s, then that was good news for you. In addition to the flood of rookies and the standard array of superstars like Cal Ripken 210, Pete Rose 505, Nolan Ryan 530, and Barry Bonds 620, Topps gave us plenty of variety in their 1989 offerings. Among the subsets and theme cards were Record Breakers number 1 through 7, Manager cards starting with Tom Kelly at number 14 and spaced about every 30 cards, Team Leader cards starting with the White Sox number 21 and spaced throughout the set, All-Stars 386 through 407, Draft Picks 10 cards not consecutively numbered, Rookie All-Stars 10 cards not consecutively numbered, Future Stars 5 cards not consecutively numbered, Checklist starting with 118 and spaced every 130 to 140 cards thereafter. Turn back the clock 661 to 665. That's a lot of uncommon cardboard, but Topps had plenty of room. As was the norm at the time, their 1989 set was brimming full with 792 cards. Buy this, get this. By 1989, Topps was in full swing when it came to populating the earth with their cardboard goodies every spring. Gone were the days when you might hop and hunt from store to store all summer long, looking for a straggling wax packs that might help you fill a gaping hole in your set. Nope, 1989 Topps cards were everywhere, and you could buy them in just about any form imaginable, and most of those packs came with a little something extra. Here is the rundown of the distribution method in play that season, as well as the bonus that each offered the hungry collectors. Wax packs. 15 cards plus a stick of gum. Yay. plus a mail-in card that you could collect and then mail in for one of 6 sets of 10 special glossy paper cards. Cello packs, 29 cards. Rack packs, 48 cards plus 1 glossy all-star insert. Jumbo packs, 100 cards plus 1 of 22 glossy rookie inserts. Kmart jumbo packs, 100 cards plus 1 of 22 batting leader inserts. Vending boxes, 500 cards, no bonus required. Factory sets, all 792 cards. If you bought an entire wax box or found a friendly store owner willing to give you his empty wax boxes, you would also find one of 4 4-card panels that looked an awful lot like the regular 1989 cards but featured different photos. Or if you were looking for something more high-end, you could buy the Topps Tiffany set, an exact parallel to the base set, done up in fancy white cardstock and slick as snot gloss. Topps rounded out our collecting year as always with their 132 card traded set, which also featured white stock but no snot. They did finally manage to get Griffey under the Topps logo though, on card number 41T. Topps traded also came in a Tiffany's version. And if you wanted something to look different and bigger than the base set, you could opt for either Topps Big or the resurrected Bowman line. Both played on the nostalgia of the past, and the latter would spend a couple of years finding its niche before eventually developing into the biggest rookie card vehicle on the planet. At the other end of the size spectrum, Topps Minis was back with a player in a cloud design on, yes, white stock with glossy fonts. Well, that's interesting. The 1989 Topps set was more or less a button-down mashup of the features we'd come to expect from the company over the years. Most of those were positive, if not boring. A few, like the soft brown cardstock, were sore enough spots to cause some collectors to avoid the brand entirely. Topps also broke out their airbrushes in earnest after several years of improving and less soft-edged photos. Some are obvious attempts to get players in new uniforms like Penna and Anderson. Then there are beauties like this Pete Rose. It makes no sense that this card would be airbrushed since he'd been with the Reds all year long in 1988, and maybe it's not. It just sure doesn't look right. Perhaps it was a harbinger of strange doings brewing for Charlie Hustle that year. Another departure from the straight and narrow came when Topps adorned number 560 with a nickname. Montreal's preeminent speedster had been Tim Raines to baseball card collectors for as long as we had known him, dating back to 1981, but he was rock on his 1989 Topps card. The cynical among us might think that it was a dig at his extracurricular activities rather than a nod at his muscular physique and steady lineup presence. What Topps would definitely do was make a mistake or flub their printing process occasionally, even when they should have been tightening up the ship to better compete with the upstarts. Maybe they thought the era card craze was due for a reboot, or maybe their Q&A folks were on strike. Whatever the case, 1989 Topps is riddled with printing gaffes that were corrected to varying degrees up and down the line. Some cards are missing copyright lines, some are missing an asterisk here and there, and some are plagued with stray lines or triangles that disappear or not in subsequent print runs. If you want to try to collect all possible variations, then you've probably found your lifetime set at last. It's a virtually impossible task, and new miscues are being uncovered all the time. For those who won't be denied despite the looming futility, Junk Wax Gems maintains a running list that might help you at least identify your white whales. Expectations met. Enough of each 1989 Topps cards exists to fill all the craters on the moon with commons and still have enough star cards left over to build a bridge back to the Earth, roughly. The good news is that we knew, or at least we suspected, that such was the case as soon as the cards popped out of the pasteboard oven. Topps 1988 set was already bleeding out of every hobby pore, and even the beloved 1987s were everywhere. So more than a quarter of a century after their release, no one is really surprised that 1989 Topps baseball cards sell for $5 or less per box or per set. It's the classic case of collecting for the love of collecting and not for the potential value, because when it comes to hobby royalty, this issue never had a chance, big or not. Like our video? Then like our videos and subscribe to our channel. waxpackgods.com